Hello there, AP Environmental Science class. Welcome to part 2 of my lecture on Chapter 19, Air Pollution and Ozone Depletion. We left off in part 1 talking about the problems, the major issues concerning outdoor air pollution. And now we are going to start part 2 of my lecture by heading indoors and talking about major indoor air pollution problems. So what are indoor air pollutants? Well, smoke and soot from burning wood and coal in cooking fires is one of the biggest indoor air pollutants out there. Now, this mostly occurs in less developed countries. Again, here in the United States, we're cooking with ovens and things like that. But in less developed countries, they're still burning wood and coal inside their homes to actually produce heat to not only warm the homes, but to cook their food. And obviously, that smoke and soot and everything is in their house. So, obviously, a big issue for those folks. Cigarette smoke, obviously, is an issue as well. Secondhand cigarette smoke indoors. And chemicals that are used in building materials and cleaning products can also produce indoor air pollution. So, again, indoor air pollution is a very serious problem, especially in less developed countries, where, again, the indoor burning of wood, charcoal, dung, crop residues, and coal can lead to this air pollution indoors, right? And again, it has the greatest risk to low-income populations who maybe aren't using stoves and things like that to cook their food. Here in the United States and in more developed countries, indoor air pollution's problem mainly comes from tobacco smoke or from something called formaldehyde, which is a chemical that is in many products in our home. Radioactive radon-222 gas is also a big issue in developed countries. And again, very small particles of air pollution as well could be an issue indoors in well-developed countries as well. So what we're looking at here, this is numerous indoor air pollutions found in most homes. Again, I don't think you need to memorize everything on this list, but I would have a few of them in mind if you need to use it on a FRQ. For instance, chloroform, right? Chlorine-treated water in hot showers produces chloroform. Asbestos, right? Pipe insulation, vinyl ceiling, and floor tiles can have asbestos, which could lead to lung disease and lung cancer. That radon-222, radioactive soil and rock surrounding the foundation, actually comes up through your foundation. That's an issue as well. Here's the formaldehyde I just spoke about. Furniture stuffing, paneling, particle board, foam insulation, right, is all formaldehyde, et cetera, right? So again, have a general idea of some of these indoor air pollution, again, things in our homes right now that could produce serious air pollution problems. Again, obviously know a few of these just in case you have to pull them out on an FRQ. All right. Levels of some common air pollutants are 2 to 5 times higher inside U.S. homes and buildings than outdoors, and sometimes up to 100 times higher. Think about it. Outdoors, we have the ecosystem services of the wind, right, that basically blows and keeps the atmosphere turning itself over and helps clean the atmosphere. Well, guess what? Indoors, you don't have that, right? So while you may not getting pollution from outside coming inside, any pollution inside is not getting outside. It's not being filtered out, right, like the normal atmosphere would be. So again, indoor air pollutant really could be a problem, right? Sometimes up to 100 times higher than outdoors. In cars as well, could be up to 18 times higher the pollution than outside. Once again, because we're not getting that wind, that circulation inside the car to clean up any air pollutants that happen to be in there. Most people in more developed urban areas spend 70% or more of their time indoors or inside vehicles, and that's why indoor air pollution, while we don't think about it that much, is a serious problem because we're spending most of our time indoors, right? So while we do talk a lot about outdoor air pollution and global warming and things like that, we don't look at indoor air pollution. And most of us spend most of our time indoors or inside cars. So again, it is a serious problem. All right, talking about that radioactive radon gas. I remember when I was young growing up in this area, my father would have to put radon test kits in our basement to make sure that we didn't get any radon gas into our home. So what is the source? Underground deposits of certain minerals, right? So basically these minerals decay this radon gas into polonium-210, which can expose lung tissue to large amounts of radiation. So again, what does the EPA recommend? Conduct radon tests. This is an issue here in Ardsley, guys. Again, the rock here has these elements in it that can reduce that radon gas that can be very dangerous to our lungs. And so again, here are just some of the ways radon 222 can get into the building. Again, it's this uranium or these other types of radioactive elements that then turn into radon 222 gas. Again, you got cracks in the floor, sub pumps, right? Cracks in the walls in your basement, anything like that could get this radon gas into your home. And when you do when you buy your own home in a couple of years, right? When you get to that point, when you do a home inspection, one of the parts of a home inspection usually is a radon test to make sure that there isn't radon gas in your home. So again, one of the issues of indoor air pollution. All right, so what are the health effects of all air pollution, right? So now we spoke about outdoor air pollution, we spoke about indoor air pollution. So now we're going to talk about the health effects of all of this pollution combined. So obviously, air pollution can contribute to asthma, chronic bronchitis, emphysema, lung cancer, again, so respiratory issues there, which then could also lead to heart attacks or strokes as well. So very serious conditions here. Respiratory system does have our protection mechanisms, right? So your body has natural air pollution defenses, right? That's kind of our ecosystem services, right? We evolved to have these prevention mechanisms. But as always, because we're overloading our atmosphere, our air with too many pollutants, we are obviously overloading our own effects to combat the air pollution. But we have hair, cilia, and mucus, right, in our respiratory system that helps trap any of these pollution particles before they get into our lungs. However, the effects of smoking and prolonged air pollution exposure, again, could lead to chronic bronchitis or emphysema. So you'll notice here are our body's natural components, right? You have the nasal cavity where the air goes into, right? And we got hair and stuff in our noses that starts to trap some of those particles. Then down into as we get close to our lungs here, right? In our windpipe, our trachea, we have these little cilia and mucus that again continues to trap any of the pollution, those particles, before they get into the lungs. Then once they get into the lungs, we have some of these air sacs, right? The alveoli that actually can help even trap more in the way of that pollution to then hopefully with the mucus, we clean it all out, right? But again, because we're overloading our atmosphere with pollution, we're overloading our own natural defense systems. And as a result, we're still seeing many problems because of that air pollution. 125,000 people develop cancer here in the United States each year just from breathing diesel fuels, which again, diesel is a type of gas that has pollution, right? 14% of the U.S. population exposed to excessive particulate pollution levels daily. So again, many of us are dealing with this. And actually here is basically premature deaths from air pollution. You'll notice most of that is here in the Midwest. Why? Because that's where our coal burning plants are, right? Our industrialized areas are, most of it here. And that's why that's where most of our deaths occur prematurely because of air pollution. Out west, right, where your prevailing wind comes in off the ocean. Remember, prevailing winds are west to east here across the U.S. You don't have a lot of air pollution because the wind is coming in off the ocean, which obviously doesn't have any industrialized areas there. So it's really where all those smokestacks, those factories, things like that are occurring. That's where you have your most issues with people prematurely dying because of air pollution. So we know air pollution is bad. We know it can happen indoors or outdoors. So how should we deal with air pollution? Well, legal, economic, and technological tools can help clean up air pollution, but obviously, you know the routine here. The best solution is to prevent it. So in the United States, Clean Air Acts of 1970, 1977, and 1990 created regulations to help curb air pollution, and these regulations are enforced by individual states and cities. The Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, established air quality standards for 6 outdoor pollutants Those 6 are carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, sulfur dioxide, suspended particulate matter, which is just little particles suspended in the air, ozone, and lead. There are quality standards, so you cannot go above those standards for these 6 types of outdoor air pollutions. The EPA's national emission standards for 188 hazardous air pollutants, called HAPs, has also been created in their toxic release inventory, TRI. We do have some new U.S. regulations that limit carbon dioxide emissions from coal-fired power plants, and new air quality standards in China, where they're trying to ban high sulfur, high ash content coal in major cities because of all the air pollution problems that they are experiencing in China. So again, we're trying to enact these laws, these treaties, to prevent or at least to reduce the air pollution before it even gets into the air. Again, prevention is much better or much cheaper and much easier than cleanup is going to be. So again, these laws trying to enact those. And I'll tell you what, levels of key air pollutants in the United States did drop sharply between 1980 and 2015. You'll notice, for instance, the 6 common pollutants together actually dropped 65%, right? Even as our CO2 emissions, energy consumption, population continues to increase, we're actually seeing less air pollutants, and that's a direct result of those laws that were enacted in the past. So again, bravo, we saw a problem. We're trying to alleviate it here in the United States. Okay, we are alleviating it a lot, but obviously, as you've learned, environmental science is interconnected. So if we're doing this here, but unfortunately in another country they're not, doesn't necessarily help the world in general. So we need everyone to get on board here to reduce at least the emissions of those 6 common pollutants that I read to you on the previous page. So using the marketplace to reduce outdoor air pollution could be a solution, right? Buy and sell air pollution allotments in the marketplace. So in 1990, the Clear Air Act authorized emissions trading or cap and trade programs. This means basically that so I'm a company, I got 500 units of pollution that I can do. I only use 200 units, while another company can come in and buy my 300 units. So I'm making money, right, by not polluting. Things like that. That's what this is called. That's the trading or the cap and trade program. However, the success depends on how low the initial cap is set and how often it is lowered, right? The idea is to continue to lower that cap of how much pollution you can be allowed, or your allotment of pollution, basically. We need to keep lowering that cap. Otherwise, it doesn't necessarily really help. But again, here's a way. Money, right? Buy and sell air pollution allotments in the marketplace. If I get some, I can buy some, or if I have some I haven't used, right, I could sell it back to other companies, and that could be a way to kind of reduce outdoor air pollution. Other ways that we can reduce outdoor air pollution, technologies used in coal burning plants, electrostatic precipitators and wet scrubbers. I'll show you pictures of those in just a second. And obviously motor vehicle pollution, right, prevention and reduction. And we're seeing a lot of that with people driving the hybrid or the electric cars, right? That is preventing and reducing, right? That's really preventing the pollution from getting into the air. The reduction would be to just drive less, or to have cars that are basically have better miles per gallon, so you don't need to burn as much gas to run your car. But again, these are technologies, right, that we can use to help us. So this is the electrostatic precipitator on the left, the red wet scrubber on the right. Basically, what happens is as the dirty smoke goes up, right, you have these negatively charged electrons on one side, positively charged on the other side, and that basically takes the dust or the soot or those particulate matter in the smoke. Basically, it doesn't allow it to get out. That positively, negatively charged keeps those smoke particles in the precipitator, and then it basically settles down into the ground where it can be collected and then sent to a landfill. Wet scrubber is very similar, except for these positively and negatively charged walls. In a wet scrubber, it's just water, right? It's just water going in, just like rain would fall down, Earth's natural capital, right? Ecological service of rain falling down, cleaning out the atmosphere. Basically, that's what happens in a wet scrubber, right? The water goes in, cleans out all the soot, all the particulate matter as the smoke is trying to leave the smokestack. All that then soot is some sludge that then gets collected and again sent to a landfill while the clean gas gets out into the air. So again, two ways technology can help us with reducing the amount of air pollution coming out of our smokestacks from our factories and from our industrial plants. So one of our favorite charts here, stationary source air pollution, right? We remember from part one, we had stationary source like factories. We had mobile sources like cars. So prevention, burn low sulfur coal or remove the sulfur from the coal to begin with. Convert coal to a liquid or gaseous fuel. We talked about that a few chapters ago. Isn't perfect, but definitely better for the environment. Switch from coal to natural gas or to those renewable energy sources, which are much cleaner. How do we reduce or disperse stationary air pollution? Well, disperse it using tall smokestacks. If you get the smokestacks way up into the atmosphere, then you have more of that wind, right, way up high in the atmosphere to disperse or to clean out the pollution. Remove pollutants from the smokestack gases initially, like the electrostatic precipitator or the wet scrubber, or right? The cap and trade, tax each unit of pollution produced by these companies. How can we prevent motor vehicle air pollution, right? Or the mobile air pollution? Well, obviously walk or bike or use mass transit, improve our fuel efficiency of our cars, and get older polluting cars off the road. How can we reduce it? Require emission control devices on our cars, inspect your car exhaust systems to make sure they're not pumping out excess amounts of pollution, and obviously set those strict emission standards, which could help. All right. How can we reduce indoor air pollution? Well, again, the greatest threat to human health, it's actually greater threat than outdoor air pollution, right? We spoke about this because we spend 70% or more of our time indoors. So what can be done? Obviously, two things, prevention and cleanup, with prevention always being the cheaper and the most efficient model. So prevention, ban indoor smoking, which pretty much has been done in most places, especially here in the United States. Set stricter formaldehyde emission standards for carpet, furniture, and building materials. Prevent that radon gas from infiltrating your home, and use naturally based cleaning agents, paints, or other products that don't release toxic fumes. If you do release your toxic fumes, how can you reduce or dilate it or dilute it indoors? Well, use adjustable fresh air vents for workspaces. Circulate the air more frequently, like outdoors, right? Ecological service there. Circulate a building's air through rooftop greenhouses to even clean the air out more. And use solar cookers and efficient vented wood burning stoves. Again, solar cookers are much better for underdeveloped countries, right? We spoke about this in a previous chapter, than have them burning wood inside their home where all that soot, all that pollution then is just there for everyone to breathe on in. So obviously, ways to reduce air pollution indoors. What can you do? Again, test for radon and formaldehyde inside your home. Do not buy furniture that has formaldehyde in it. Test your home for asbestos levels, right? If you smoke, don't smoke indoors. Make sure that any wood burning stoves, fireplaces, etc., are properly vented. Install carbon monoxide detectors, use fans, etc., etc., etc. All right. So again, you don't need to know all of these, but definitely have a few just in case you need to pull a few out on an FRQ. All right. Final part of this chapter is to talk about ozone. Again, in the stratosphere, ozone is good for us as it blocks the ultraviolet radiation from the sun, which produces cancer. On the surface of the earth, however, ozone is an air pollutant and actually can be very bad for our lungs. So, how have we depleted ozone in the stratosphere and what can we do about it? This is called the ozone hole. So widespread use of certain chemicals reduced the ozone levels in the stratosphere and allowed more harmful ultraviolet radiation to reach the earth. Actions that were necessary to reverse it: stop producing the ozone depleting chemicals, the chlorofluorocarbons, and adhere to international treaties that ban those chemicals. So, what is this? Ozone, okay, is mainly thinning over Antarctica and the Arctic. This was a much bigger deal back when I was your age, guys. Back in the 1980s, there was a huge ozone hole over the Antarctic. But believe it or not, in 1989, something called the Montreal Protocol, many nations got together and banned the use of these CFCs, or these chlorofluorocarbons. And now we've actually seen 30, 40 years later that the ozone hole is getting much, much smaller. So again, another positive thing we did, we realized in the 80s, we were ruining the ozone hole, ruining our protection from cancer-causing ultraviolet radiation. We got together as a world community and we banned the use of these chlorofluorocarbons, which has now caused the ozone hole to actually get smaller. But what are these chlorofluorocarbons? They're persistent chemicals that attack ozone in the stratosphere. They take 11 to 20 years to reach the stratosphere from ground level, and then they hang around there for many, many more years. What happens is the CF molecule attacks ozone, O3, and actually strips off the free oxygen. This combines with the free chlorine to produce basically a chlorine oxygen compound. And each chlorine atom can break down hundreds of ozone molecules. So that's basically what happens. This chlorine comes in, strips the one of the O's off of the ozone, right? So now you have O2, not O3. O2 is not ozone. O2 cannot protect us from ultraviolet radiation. And now you have what is known as the ozone hole. This is a picture of the ozone hole. This was actually during 2015. But again, when I was your age, this was much, much larger. So again, still a problem. We still need to protect our ozone layer. But again, definitely getting much better because of the ways that we came together to ban those chlorofluorocarbons, so we don't have that chlorine now roaming around the stratosphere, ripping the oxygen, one oxygen molecule away from the O3, basically destroying ozone. So again, ozone protects the Earth's surface from damaging ultraviolet radiation. Without it, there would be human health concerns. UV radiation also affects plankton, critical for removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and it's also the lowest level of the food chain in our aquatic systems, right? So if you mess that up, you're going to mess up the entire food chain. So obviously the ozone level very important that we keep it high up in the stratosphere. So stop producing ozone depleting chemicals immediately would take at least 60 years to recover from the 1980 levels, but we are seeing that now happening. Again, that Montreal Protocol cut emissions of the CFCs. And then later on, we had something known as the Copenhagen Amendment, which accelerated that phase out of those chlorofluorocarbons. And again, we are seeing the ozone hole shrink now. Once again, a positive story coming from environmental science. All right, our final slide here, just so that you know a few effects of ozone depletion. Again, worse sunburns, more eye cataracts, right? Could have immune system suppression in forests, reduce yields for some crops, right? You could decrease forest productivity. Wildlife, more eye cataracts for species, right? Shrinking populations of aquatic species. And again, increase acid deposition, increase photochemical smog if we have this ozone, right, near the ground. And again, while in the troposphere, it could also act as a greenhouse gas, which can also obviously continue to warm up our environment, which is what we do not want. All right, that concludes my lecture on Chapter 19, Air Pollution and Ozone Depletion. And as always, I thank you for listening.